The Washington Post's David Ignatius has a new piece entitled Biden Needs to Figure Out How to Manage the Trump Endgame, in which he writes in part this: if the Senate fails to gather the two-thirds majority for conviction, as sadly seems nearly inevitable, the public will look to Biden for guidance about what comes next. Silence won't be enough then. The aftermath of impeachment will shape the future, providing either a bridge toward reconciliation or a wider chasm and perhaps a renewed underground insurrection from pro-Trump forces. Biden must find a way to address Trump's supporters. Biden needs to speak to them firmly but respectfully after the trial. It's over. We're one country again. We're listening to you. But if you use violence, you'll face the full force of the law. One of history's great lessons is to be generous in victory, not toward the hardcore conspirators, but toward the people who were manipulated, incited, and some even inspired by the voices of sedition. Half the country can't be the enemy.
I don't even know where to start. That was my favorite. There's no better way to start a day than with Mika's voice. Mika. That is Mika from Morning Joe and talking about the globalist David Ignatius, a completely hapless, wrong on everything. David Ignatius has been wrong on every major foreign policy decision in the last 25 or 30 years. Wrong on all of it, okay? Another complete hack over at the Washington Post. One of these guys, he's so a complete hack. And we'll go through later in another episode, David Ignatius, the hack. But listen, you guys resisted Trump right from the beginning. We're resisting Biden, right? Any violence should absolutely be dealt with. There's not even a question about that. But this resistance is the American people to an illegitimate Biden presidency. Mika, I'm sorry if you and Joe and the rest of you guys who are embassy don't like that. You're never going to convince us. 40% of the American people believe it today, and more are going to believe it as more information comes out, and more information is coming out. You're in the War Room live from an occupied Washington, D.C. It is Wednesday, the 10th of February. The year of our Lord, 2021, now with almost 35 million downloads of podcasts. Of course, on the John Fredericks Radio Network, on Real America's Voice, Dish Channel 219, Comcast Channel 113, the streaming service of the Trump Revolution. We're on G News, GTV, simulcast in Mandarin. Go through the firewall so we got everything. Raheem's very happy today. They're actually pastries. Somebody brought a Danish, and Raheem has gone full medieval on a thing of pastries. The producer Cameron just went up in his eyes. He's now got a 10 on a 10 scale because who brought these pastries? I haven't touched them. I just want to be duly noted. Engine room. I've not touched them. Eric Greitens, former governor of Missouri. The great host of another Real America's Voice show later in the day. In fact, you follow us at 5. At 6 o'clock, It's Actionable Intelligence. Always got John Solomon. Got great stuff going on. First, I want both of you guys, Greitens, you first, and Raheem, Mika, Ignatius, and what it means to the audience out there, because they're talking down to you like you're some group of criminals, right? Eric Greitens.
Well, first of all, what is hilarious about this is that he's saying that he wants Joe Biden to powerfully come out and speak to the American people. He didn't do it once during the campaign. During his inauguration, he wouldn't speak to the American people because they had fences, barbed wire, and razor wire up specifically so that the American people would not be there during the inauguration. The idea that he's going to unify the country, he can't even unify his own party. He came into office and he immediately kills 11,000 jobs with the Keystone XL pipeline. He's got his own guys from the AFL-CIO who are coming after him now because he's killing jobs. So the idea that he's gonna unify the party, and I'd also say, and all of our viewers, we've said this before, they're gonna hear it again. Absolutely, I agree with you, Steve. We all do. No violence. And you know what? Where was that message from the left all summer long?
All summer.
They
it's still
had
happening.
A chance. That's right.
It's
That's right.
still
That's
happening
right.
now.
And that's very important.
Over at DuPont Circle
now.
the other night, Antifa and BLM.
Absolutely.
Started burning all night.
It's still it's happening across the country.
But let's talk about this phony meme of unity, right? Okay, we're not going to be unified as long as you have not come forward and talk about anything about the big steal. We're not going to be unified. Bruce Springsteen can sing all the sad songs and, out in the middle of the country and they try to be a working man, another phony. We're not going to be unified because we're never going to sit there and allow you to kowtow to the Chinese Communist Party, to have appeasement. We're not going to sit there. The radical nature of what you're trying to do of destroy little girls' sports, women's sports. We're not going to be unified on your radical attempts to destroy our sovereignty on the southern border. Agenda item after agenda item after agenda item of what is America first. Your unity is we kowtow and say you can do it. No, we're not going to do it. We're going to fight all those policies. We're going to have a sweeping victory. We're going to stop you right now. Stop you, full stop. We're going to have a sweeping victory in 2022, take over the House. They're going to take over the presidency. I'm sorry you don't like it. You started resisting us at 2:30 in the morning on the 9th of November. So are we. We're in your grill. We're not going to back up. And you'd expect that feckless Joe Biden, who you didn't let out of hiding, to come out and unify the country? What planet are you on? And David Ignatius, another phony globalist, wrong on every policy, including all his kowtowing to the Chinese Communist Party. Guys, take it away.
Well, look, the other thing that's happening, Steve, is that people are watching what's happening right now in Washington, D.C., and they're saying, this is about unity. You're doing this snap drive-by impeachment without evidence. There's no evidence. You're impeaching the president of the United States.
I saw a video last night of Raheem. Greitens says no evidence. They started off with a 15-minute. Like Mike Tyson says, everybody's got a strategy in a fight. Everybody's got a strategy till you walk out and get punched in the mouth.
Punched in the face.
Yes. So, Raheem, is Greitens right? Is there no evidence?
Well, it depends on what you're looking for, and this is what it comes down to. What Mika was saying, right? They are now treating the American public like an abuser in an abusive relationship. Unity with one hand and a punch in the face with the other, right? And it's goes right to the video from yesterday. All of the evidence that was cut and spliced, and what. Remember, CNN has called, and everyone has called over the last couple of years, doctored. Right. Remember, when a meme is made, it's a doctored video. But when the House impeachment managers cleverly cut and splice to make it look like President Trump is, commanding the troops on the battlefield of Capitol Hill, then that's just evidence in a court case.
So when you say what evidence do they have, Greitens? You saw the mashup. You saw Jamie Raskins crying on the floor, right? There's no pathos here, is there, Raheem? What evidence?
Well, first of all, let's go back to how this started in the House. You're impeaching a president of the United States and you don't have any hearings. You don't allow any time for any evidence. And it just made it very clear to the American people this was a political vendetta. If this was a serious process, if this was a serious procedure, they would have actually had hearings and evidence. They would have done investigations. And why was that important? Because what are we learning from the people who are actually going out doing the reporting? John Solomon at justthenews.com and others have stories out indicating that the FBI, in the people who they have arrested already, were involved in pre-planning this assault on the Capitol as early as late November.
In the B block, we're going to have Darren Beattie on here. We're going to talk about the death of the Capitol Hill police officer. Very tragic. He laid in state last week. A lot of questions about that. Are you and Solomon now going to the fever swamps of conspiracy theory? Tell me? You got FBI guys planning this thing.
Here's the facts. The facts are based on the FBI's own indictments. They're saying that they are arresting people for planning this last November. No connection to President Trump. And so how can the president have been inciting something that was both pre-planned and that started before he was even speaking? It doesn't make any sense.
We're going to get to that in the B block. Raheem, let's talk about yesterday. Did you hear Greitens talking about the details, and you've got these charges and what's going on? Did the president's lawyer? I mean, we talked about this yesterday at 5, but you got to get back on it. I don't know. We have argued from day one. This was you read the indictment, you read the 80-page thing. It's a TV script. It's a made-for-TV drama. They're not trying to. It's not a court of law. Right. There's not a court of law. What they're trying to do is destroy Trump. They're trying to purge him from the system. Mitch McConnell says yesterday, so we voted for it was not constitutional, but people should still vote their conscience. And I'm not decided yet. He's still letting Trump know if you say the bad words, election fraud.
Yeah, the F word.
If you say the F word, fraud. You use the F word. Very good, Raheem. If you use the F word, you're done. What was the performance yesterday? And give me the signal, not the noise.
So I know you don't like me being cute about things, but here's something. I wasn't aware that the president had representation in there yesterday. It didn't seem like it. It seemed like you had somebody who was kind of defending the American taxpayer by saying this is all a waste of our times and it's unconstitutional or whatever, but it wasn't a defense of Donald Trump. It wasn't a defense of the man, his position, his knowledge, what he has learned about the F word and all of that. It was just a kind of this weird, firstly, really weird wending, legalistic, hey, I've come to Washington, D.C. a couple of days early. I wanted to see where I could park my car. You know, and the other side was openly lying. We found that story about Jonathan Turley and Congressman Neguse actually falsely attributing something to Jonathan Turley. And I just wonder, you know, are any of the president's team actually in there or on the sidelines feeding information in, whatever, however the thing works? Are they actually kind of looking around in real time, trying to figure out if the Democrats are even telling the truth when they do their thing?
There's no surrogates out. I mean, there's no pushback whatsoever.
Nothing.
No organized effort here whatsoever.
And I have to say, I understand that people absolutely love President Trump. They 25,000 of them went to this website I built to leave messages for him. 25,000 positive messages.
What's the website?
It's thankstrump.org.
Fantastic.
But I also am starting to see this frustration now with him. Why can't he put good lawyers up? Why is he not insisting on a more robust defense?
He's a fighter. Where's the fight?
Why can't we hear from him himself? You know, I'm just channeling the audience here. I can sense this frustration building.
Well, let's talk about that. Do you think, because here's what's going to happen today, and we're going to have Boris on towards the end of the show to walk us through the mechanics, but you're going to have a couple of days of just a full beatdown. Ladies and gentlemen, just remember, yesterday was the constitutional part.
Yes.
And of course, the Democrats don't play by the Marquis of Queensberry's rules. You're supposed to talk by the Constitution. They come out with a 15-minute, I call it a made-for-TV fantasy, right? So what do you expect?
Because they don't want to. This is the classic. Like, let's start strategically. What's the left doing when they can't win on the argument? They want to call people names. That's the strategic tactic that they're using. What are they doing here operationally? They can't win the constitutional argument, so instead they're going to basically try and get everybody emotional by putting out these clearly clipped videos. You know, instead of just saying that the president said, let's go over and peacefully and patriotically go to the Capitol, which is what he said. They're not going to play that. They're going to give their own version, and people just aren't taking it seriously.
Here's what and this is why people have to take it seriously, because they're coming after the MAGA movement. You see David Ignatius, they're gaslighting you. And here's why. Over the next couple of days, yesterday's mashup was about the 6th, and of course they took Trump stuff from earlier on. They're going to start talking about November 4th to the 6th. They're going to talk about all the efforts to show the fraud and make this part of the big lie that drove this. This is where they're going to try to beat down the MAGA movement. That's why it's absolutely essential. We'll say it over and over again. The defense here has got to rest around proving the big lie, proving the big steal. That they're saying it's a big lie from us, it's a big steal from them. You just have to reinforce the 77 day. You got to deconstruct the 77 days of the New York Times front page story and Time Magazine's cover on the on the secret history of 2020. If you deconstruct both of those, you'll be in good shape. Right now, they're going to argue severability and all this great stuff in the Constitution should be argued, but not when you're having, as Raheem Kassan would say, a argument built around pathos coming at you. Okay, short commercial break. We're going to get back into some of the details.
I want to tell the audience, get into the live chat on americasvoice.news.
Do it right now. Back in a second.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
For him today. He died as a result of the January 6th mob attack on the U.S. Capitol. This is after a rioter hit him in the head with a fire extinguisher.
The Capitol Hill Police headquarters there. It is in remembrance of Officer Brian Sicknick. He died from injuries after being struck in the head by a fire extinguisher during the storming of the Capitol.
Officer and veteran Brian Sicknick killed as a result of Wednesday's chaos. Officials investigating reports that he was attacked with a fire extinguisher.
An altercation with some of the rioters that Officer Sicknick was struck in the head with a fire extinguisher.
Officials investigating reports that he was attacked with a fire extinguisher.
Rioters hit him in the head with a fire extinguisher, and that was the cause of his death.
Of Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick have been looking into reports that he may have been hit with a fire extinguisher.
For him today, he died as a result of the January 6th mob attack on the U.S. Capitol. This is after a rioter hit him in the head with a fire extinguisher.
One Thomas Caldwell. Tell us about Thomas Caldwell.
So he's one of the 12 people that are charged with conspiracy. What does that mean? They were planners. They were conspiring long before the day of the event. He's a Virginia man, Northern Virginia. His lawyer made a filing in court late last night.
Yeah.
We have not been able to get the FBI to confirm this, but in this filing, the lawyer says, my client worked for the Navy for a long time. He had a top secret clearance for many, many years. And from 2009 to 2010, he worked for the FBI at the level of section chief. That's very senior. That's like the equivalent of a special agent in charge of an office and headquarters. Very senior job. The idea that an FBI man was somehow involved in this, if that turns out to be true, it's going to turn the scrutiny even more into what the Bureau was up to and why it might have looked the other way or missed some of this information. Okay,
you're back in the war room. Wow. First was the mashup. Great job, Cameron Wallace, our producer, on top of things. That was magnificent. First off, is about Capitol Hill Police Officer Brian Sicknick. This whole effort now, I'm bringing in Darren Beattie. There's a big question of exactly how the officer laid in state last week before his funeral, what actually happened there. The other, and that's pretty explosive, what's really, how the officer actually die and what happened and why it's being spread that it was hit in the head with a fire extinguisher. Number two, which is even more explosive, and this is the great work of John Solomon and Lieutenant Commander Eric Greitens, former Navy SEAL, former governor of Missouri, and a former Rhodes Scholar. This whole thing of Caldwell, a Navy lieutenant commander with a top secret clearance, and then goes to the FBI section chief, huge job, top secret clearance. He's arrested as one of the conspiracy theory guys, and his lawyer says, "Oh yeah, he worked for the FBI." If this had been on the straight up, that would literally been on the loop. That would have been on the loop on MSNBC, CNN. I want to bring in Darren Beattie. Raheem, Darren, what is the story with the Capitol Hill Police Officer? Let's deal with Officer Sicknick first. What actually happened? We know he's dead. We know that he went to the Rotunda in a remembrance. It's late in state, I think. But what's going on here? Raheem, start, and then Beattie, come in here.
Well, so obviously we were all mortified by the death of a Capitol Police officer, and it creates even more intrigue when the media kind of repeats over and over again that this was the cause of death. He was hit in the head with a fire extinguisher. And I've been doing this for 10 years plus now, and it stood out to me immediately that they were going very big on that narrative, but that they went very big on that narrative immediately, like super, super fast. And it wasn't just one network, it wasn't just one person. And I started looking around, and almost every CNN anchor said it as a matter of fact. They had Ted Lieu on to confirm that. They had it all across all the different networks following up, and of course in all the print press too. And then last Tuesday, when I was looking into this, just searching around, Brian Sicknick's name and trying to figure out more details, I found this CNN report that had been buried, never been given front page on the CNN website. Wasn't any, Anderson Cooper didn't talk about it on the nightly news.
They're Ben Smithing it.
Yeah, exactly. And it said in the CNN report that actually medical examiners have now said that it's unlikely, and in fact I think their words were not true, that Brian Sicknick force trauma.
No blunt force trauma.
No blunt force trauma, i.e. he was not hit in the head with a fire extinguisher.
No fire extinguisher blow, no bloody gash, no blunt force trauma.
Right.
So, Darren Beattie, what is going on here? We were inundated with, he was hit by a fire extinguisher, died by being hit to blow to a head, beaten to death with a fire extinguisher. Then they do a Ben Smith, which they put it out, but they don't promote it. They say later, oh, yeah, we covered that. As Greitens said, no blunt force trauma, no cuts to the head. So what's going on, and why is Revolver all over this?
Look, I need all of your listeners to listen very carefully. This is maybe the most important story that Revolver's ever run. I know this goes much deeper than we've reported yet. There's more coming out, and I need to figure out just how much to report and how. But to start out with, go to revolver.news and go to the story highlighted MAGA blood libel. Why are they hiding the medical report? Now, I'm going to walk through the key factors in this case very quickly, but everyone go to revolver.news, read this report, share it. It's deeply disturbing, deeply provocative, and I promise you, the rabbit hole goes far deeper than you'd ever expect. So what's the story with this Officer Sicknick? As Raheem pointed out very eloquently, the media ran with the narrative. Oh, he was bludgeoned with a fire extinguisher. The New York Times reported this. The New York Post reported this. Everyone reported this, and this was a key narrative component of constructing the narrative of domestic terror.
Yep.
In fact, even the House trial memorandum itself repeated this lie that Trump incited these quote-unquote insurrectionists who bludgeoned this officer to death with a fire extinguisher. Now, I think it's explosive enough as a story that it turns out that that's not actually true. It turns out he wasn't bludgeoned at all. But the really mysterious and disturbing stuff comes when we ask, so what actually happened with him? What's the timeline? And again, this is all in very, very granular detail in the Revolver News article. But I want to point out a few key details. Now, on Wednesday, multiple hours after the protests have concluded, Sicknick, that is the officer in question, texted his brother Ken that very night, and he said he was basically fine. He said, quote unquote, he was pepper sprayed twice, but that he was in good shape. That's on Wednesday, the evening after the protests concluded. Now, a very weird thing happened. The next day, in the afternoon, the officer's family got phone calls conveying the information that Officer Sicknick was dead. Now, one really weird thing about this, the phone calls, were they coming from the hospital? Were they coming from doctors? Were they coming from the Capitol Police, the FBI, the DOJ? No. They were coming from media reporters. So somehow certain privileged media personnel were the first to receive this sensitive information circling, quote unquote, among law enforcement officials that Sicknick was dead. Now it gets even weirder. The Capitol Police spokesperson comes out after these rumors circulated and said, wait a second, he's not dead. Only quickly to reverse that right after saying, oh, now he actually is dead. So there's something very weird there. Why did the media know this first? Why did the Capitol Police then deny this only right after to say, oh, after all, he was dead? Again, it gets even weirder. Reports are that Sicknick told his, there were reports that he collapsed inside the Capitol building and then was rushed to the hospital. The Wikipedia entry on this still has this as the official story, collapsed in the building. But then the U.S. Capitol Police made a statement saying that he returned to his office at the police division first. So sometime between Sicknick being fine, healthy, and back in his office on Wednesday night, he died effectively early Thursday evening from an apparent stroke. Now, what of this stroke? There's no evidence of this. Again, no medical report released. Acting Attorney General Jeffrey Rosen says the DOJ will, quote, spare no resources in getting to the bottom of what happened. Yet, over a month after his death, zero information has been disclosed regarding his death, regarding the medical reports. Even weirder, autopsy. No autopsy has been released. These take just 2 to 4 hours to perform. No evidence. No identification of him receiving any fatal injuries despite all the surveillance at the Capitol. And to cap it all off, he was apparently cremated. Why would he be cremated? The family was confused that they were these initial reports from the media, and given the bizarre nature of the timeline and how rushed all this is and how scattered all of this is, the family agrees immediately to a cremation, meaning that there's no further forensic analysis that can be done regarding the death. So what's the story? Why did the family agree to this? Or did they even agree to this? So these are just some of the questions raised in this article, revolver.news. Keep in mind, this is only part one. You mentioned Caldwell, the FBI.
I tell you, hang on. We're going to take a short commercial break. Mike Lindell is going to join us. We're trying to get Mike Lindell. He's traveling, but we're trying to take him about the destruction of Mike Lindell and his company. They're all over him. We're going to hold Revolver. We're going to come back with Darren Beattie, take a short commercial break. When Darren Beattie tells you it's the most important story he thinks Revolver's ever done, that should get your attention. It's one of the best sites out there. This is one of the most serious people. And Greitens is all focused on, I tell you, there's no conspiracies, but there are also no coincidences. We're going to be back in a moment in the War Room.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, we have Darren Beattie. Darren, we're going to have to bring you back. We're going to figure out later show. We got to get to both this. I got to figure out. This is very disturbing. You know, Officer Brian Sicknick looked like everything was a great. He was a veteran, a great police officer, part of the Capitol Hill Police. We got to get to the bottom of what exactly happened to him and why he has not been fully disclosed. Right, we're going to get to that.
Yeah, and let's say we honor our police officers,
100%,
and we honor them by getting to the truth.
Absolutely,
we honor them by getting to that's why this is
Yes.
so important to get to the truth of what really happened, because you can't allow anyone's death to be used as a political football,
Right.
be misrepresented by the left.
Right.
This is what Officer Sicknick wanted. I mean, this is a guy that served his country, was devoted to his country. Also disturbing, and look, this is two naval officers, Greitens and myself, and you've got another naval officer in Caldwell. We got to get to the bottom. We're going to have to do this later in the show. We got to figure. We'll carve some time out, and we'll get Beattie back in here. This is disturbing when you have a former Navy lieutenant commander, has a top secret clearance, worked, as his lawyer asserts in their filings, worked as a section head, is like a special agent in charge, section head for the FBI. Now this guy's indicted essentially as a part of the conspiracy, planning in November, not motivated by any speech in the 6th, planning in November for this Capitol thing, and the media's not all over it.
Right.
And the FBI is quiet about this. John Solomon, the great investigative reporter, can't, and he's got every contact in the FBI you want. It's all crickets. Something's up, folks. This is not, I mean, if this was a straight deal of a Navy lieutenant commander, it would be running on a loop on CNN and MSNBC all day long, right? That was part of the conspiracy. And I think they're saying he's part of the Oath Keepers. I think they're saying he's one of the Oath Keepers.
That's one of the allegations. And then, this has to be verified. But his lawyer's saying that he was a Navy lieutenant commander who left, that he had service-connected disabilities, saying that he then worked as an FBI section chief in 2009 and 2010. Got to figure it out.
Darren, by the way, when Darren Beattie, as explosive as Revolver has been and on top of so many stories, in hot competition with the National Pulse, right? No, two great apparatuses with John Solomon's just
complementary, not
complementary.
competition.
This is what I'm saying. That these things are now popping up that are major news sites now. When Darren Beattie says, "I think this may be the most explosive, important story that Revolver's ever done," and it's the first of a couple of pieces. Darren, we're going to get you back, but just tell people, go to Revolver now to read this about Officer Sicknick. When are you going to drop the next part, Darren?
We should get it out later this week, Friday at the latest. This is a rabbit hole that goes very deep. I just want to point out, other than saying go to revolver.news and read this first piece, it is interesting that several U.S. Capitol police officers are under investigation now. How convenient to hold that leverage over them to prevent them from talking or perhaps revealing something that would be deeply disturbing to the narrative or the whole story of what occurred on January 6th.
Okay.
So stay tuned, revolver.news. Read the first piece, and please share it everywhere.
Force multipliers out there in this audience. We need this thing pushed hard. Darren, what's your coordinates so people can get you during the day?
At Darren J. Beattie on Twitter, at Revolver News on Gab, and of course, revolver.news. Check it. We have some more explosive stuff coming out. Please share. Please read.
Okay, we're going to try to track down Darren. Darren, thank you very much. Trying to track you down even today for this Caldwell story, Commander Caldwell. Yep. Going to get into it. I want to get to Mike Lindell, who's obviously pressed for time because he's working on a major new development in his film, Absolute Proof. Mike, I just want to go back. We got an announcement on Absolute Proof. I think we'll get to a little later in this interview. But I want to talk about, because this is what, we had this morning. We start with Mika's voice about David Ignatius, that Biden's got to come to come out and heal the nation, and these insurrectionists and these bad guys are pushing these lies. Mike, you've got a business that employs 2,700 Americans, American-made, manufactured, pillows and other sleep associated products, highly successful. You've got a recovery network. Given your long and I might say sordid history, right, with drugs and gambling and alcohol and everything, the road to perdition your life was on before you found the Lord and change, and now have really, as you've told me, more important than my company, more important than anything I'm doing is this recovery network that's biblically centered and Christ-centered. They're trying to destroy that. They're trying to destroy you personally. They're trying to destroy your business. And they're not. This is my point. They're not just saying, let's get into a debate and say, Lindell's wrong. His facts are wrong. He's nothing but a kook, and we can prove it. And here's the 10 things, and you should dismiss him as a crazy man. No, it's the politics of personal destruction. Right. Just like they have to destroy Trump. Remember, this is what it's about. This is called being Alinsky'd. Alinsky and these guys knew you single out who the leaders are and you go destroy the leaders. You go destroy Donald Trump. That's what this whole thing is about this week. And this is why Trump has to fight back. And you're seeing in some of these chat rooms people saying, hey, he's my leader. He's my fighter. Where is he? Why is there no fight? Why has he got these two schmendricks up there last night? That is pathetic, right? Let's just say what it was. It was pathetic. And they're good guys. People know them. They're solid people. But they're not prepared, just terrible, against the kind of lies and the misrepresentation, the made-for-TV fantasy pathos. Is Raheem said it 3 weeks ago when he saw the original report, said, hey, they're not coming. There's not a court of law. They're not going to argue anything legal. They're going to come and make a made-for-TV orange man evil, orange man dangerous, right? That's what we have, right? Mike Lindell. And what has Mike Lindell done? He's gone out of his own pocket. He didn't go to government. He didn't go to say, hey, I want to raise some money. He out of his own pocket, he stroked checks. I'm going to put this together because I don't think it's organized. I'm going to take the cranks out that have been running around and try to have some people that have histories, reputations put together. Guess what? Let's assume it's dead wrong. This is the United States of America. Then stand up and say, here's where he's wrong. Bang, 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 bang. This is a fever dream. This is ridiculous. This is an assertion. The New York Times says it's not absolute proof. It's absolute opinion. Fine. Then walk through and say what you disagree with it. No. What do? They try to suppress it. And then they go after. They try to destroy him personally. Right. They try to destroy the company by going after vendors, employees, huge exposés, and then they go
their own pillow.
And then they got the little twerp on the left. I'm gonna start my own pillow. Good luck, brother. And by the way, you go through 30 pages of Google, and that's all you see is Hogue is it in his pillow, right? Hugging his pillow. You go to the vendors, and then the most evil of all, for a guy that's put his own money to do a recovery network to help. And he says, I was so far gone, I was beyond gone. And until I came to God, until I came to Christ, right? And he's not trying to sell a release. Until I came to Christ, I couldn't sort it out. I had to change that. A guy puts his own money up, launches a recovery network, and they so attack that even some of the churches that were things are kind of standoffish because they don't want, in this woke environment, they don't always zero it out. That shows you the level of depravity that we're in. This is why we fight every day, and this is why we're not going to back off. It's that American cussedness, right, that says we are not going to back off 1 inch. So, Mike, I don't think people fully understand. I want to talk about the suppression of the movie, but then I got to get to the destruction of you, the company, and particularly the recovery network. How, and because you're very sophisticated about this, but and sometimes our audience is just not, because they just don't deal in this world. How is the tech oligarchs and the mainstream media hooked up with the left to try to suppress this, and not even the left, just the establishment, trying to suppress anybody even watching this movie, not just criticizing it, actually just physically getting so they can actually view the movie?
Yeah, I've never seen anything like it. It's like they're all in collusion. It's very organized. They, all of them for 2.5 or 3 weeks, they called me every morning, the mainstream media, every morning from the time I woke up to the time I went to bed. New York Times, Washington Post, USA Today, all the TV shows, all the newspapers. They call me up and then they would mock me in their things saying, Mike has no evidence, Mike's this, Mike's that. That was mocked on TV shows at night, on Saturday Night Live, all of them. Then, as soon as this comes out, I kept telling them, it's coming out Friday, it's coming out Friday. It's crickets. Complete crickets. I mean, complete crickets. I mean, they don't call me, so I try calling them. I try calling their cell phones. I call them up. Hey, I got the evidence. I'm bugging them off the hook. They probably never had anything like it. They're sorry they gave me their cell phone numbers. So, but then in the meantime, then I find these other enemies or these other people attack me. Google, I can't Google my own name. If you put, I can't buy my own AdWords. So if you Google.
Did we lose his mic? We gotta get his
Lost
mic.
Mike's mic.
Did we lose his mic? Yeah. You see, by the way, Lindell's stalking him now, right? He's stalking the reporters. But this is what happens. The mainstream media, when he was there in the White House and had that thing, they're bombarding nonstop. Let's get crazy Lindell to say something about the president,
yes.
right? You've seen this.
Yes.
Let's about the president. But as soon as let me know when he's back up and got some sound, we'll go back to him. But as soon as he's got the film. Crickets. They don't no calling him because then they're going to have to address the film. I told Mike, I said, I'll take your call and give you an interview when you told me you've watched the film, and then ask him a couple of tough questions about the film. Greitens.
Well, look, this also shows this attack against what Mike's doing in his work for addicts shows how heartless the left is, okay? So you'd think that we could all agree, even if you were leftist, and even if you thought, you know what, Mike Lindell, he's absolutely wrong on this. He's absolutely wrong on the evidence. Even if you thought, his documentary is factually incorrect, you might say, gosh, he's saving lives. He, because of his own experience going through addiction, he's got this experience. He's moved through pain. He's built some wisdom. And you know what? He's sharing that wisdom with other people. He's moved through suffering. He's built some strength, and he's sharing that strength with other people. And if you were an open-hearted person who cared about your fellow Americans, whether they were Republican, liberal, Democrat, conservative, you'd say, if somebody has an addiction, that is a terrible thing. Mike Lindell's found a way to change lives and to save lives. Let's recognize that that's good. But they are so invested in personal destruction that they don't enough. Forget even about Mike Lindell. He's a big man. He can take care of himself. They're going to go after the addicts who are benefiting from his program. They're going to destroy that all because they have this vendetta.
So what Greitens just said, Raheem, tie this back to David Ignatius and Mika in the morning, right? They're sitting there going, oh, you got to unite the country. We're all reunited. We're all one country. Here's a guy that, and these are American-made, the sleepwear and the pillows are all American-made. These are American jobs, right, up in the Midwest, and some other places, but essentially in the Midwest. They're trying to destroy that, and then they go after the Recovery Network. They're going after the Recovery Network to the fact that they're trying to get churches that are part of it to back off. How does that unite us?
I think the question answers itself. There's something deeper here. It's something much more evil at play. I noticed somebody replied to David Hogg yesterday on Twitter. She said, I'm not an evangelical Christian, but I am a Christian. And the fact that every time you tweet about your new pillow, David Hogg, you say, and also we won't be sending you Bible verses. And he's so derogatory and charmless about the way he goes about, his evangelical atheism. And somebody replied to this woman and said, then don't buy his pillow. Right. And I just thought, isn't that really interesting that again, we come back to Jesus, we come back to God, we come back to good versus evil. And this is why they're doing what they're doing to Mike. And I just have to, every single one of these, churches and pastors who find themselves on the political left and find themselves supporting an agenda of Joe Biden and the Mexico City policy and all of this stuff. And I just do not know how they square that away. And I think there's something really interesting there.
Okay, we're going to take a short commercial break, trying to get Mike Lindell back. You got Eric Greitens, Raheem Kassam, Stephen K. Bannon. You're in the war room. A lot more about Lieutenant Commander Caldwell, about the Officer Sicknick. There's something very disturbing about here. We're going to get to the bottom of all of it. We'll return in just a moment.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
You got Morning Joe and David Ignatius, the Washington Post, looking at Trump's endgame. The question is when is President Trump, who has been, I think, the greatest fighter and certainly counterpuncher in American political history, all of his team is a posse of MAGAs asking, where's the fight? They see guys like Mike Lindell out there every day hammering away. The president's been the leader of this movement because of the fight. You saw yesterday a complete debacle by these attorneys. That's not Donald Trump. That's not MAGA. That's not President Trump. And I think, I've said this for a long time, I think you're going to see a sea change over there. I think President Trump is going to watch this today. If you thought he saw it yesterday, that was just the constitutional part. Of course, they didn't play by the Marquis of Queensborough. They came and hit you right in the mouth immediately with a 15-minute video mashed up with comments he said before, totally unrelated to reality. But remember, they create their own reality. This is where we are.
Evidence doesn't matter for them. Logic doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It's not a court of law.
Yes.
I think President Trump, who's the best counterpuncher ever. Boy, I think you're going to see a counterpunch. Raheem?
Just a note about this. Marquis, not Marquis.
Marquis of Queensborough. I like that.
Here's the thing. Okay, everything that we've been talking about today, just quick note. Mark this thing down because we're going to come back to this moment. Let's see how the media and the chaiwalas at Media Matters, right, and feeding into the media, let's see how they deal with all of these inconsistencies and things that we're now finding from your report and what Darren
You're talking
Beattie's
about Lieutenant Commander
about.
Caldwell,
Yeah.
Officer Sicknick.
Let's mark this moment. Let's see how they deal with it, because if there isn't something strange going on in a wider sense, they'll meet us with ridicule. But I happen to believe they're going to meet us with anger on this one.
Okay, fine. Let's see what happens. We're going to search for the truth. So whether it's anger or whatever, we could care less. Honey badgers. I want to go to the head honey badger, Mike Lindell, who's put his company, his own person, his family, and particularly his beloved recovery network, a church-based, biblical-based, Christ-based recovery network that's now under assault. I want to go back to social media and to the power of the tech oligarchs. Google, walk people through, what is Google Words, how do you use them, and how have they shut you off, Mike Lindell?
Right. What Google AdWords are, let's say you buy the name MyPillow or whatever you buy, like my name, Mike Lindell. Now, whatever you put, your website, like my recovery network, would show up first then. It would show up, it says ad by it. That's how Google makes all their money. They sell AdWords, so you can put an ad up above the actual website so that you're first. Well, on Friday, when the absolute proof came out, Google and I started a little battle, and because they kept putting up all these crazy stories in between, so you couldn't find michaeljlindell.com to get the DVD or to watch the absolute proof. Well, then, so I did different things. I put where I usually have my recovery network. I bought my own name, so everything of mine would show up, and I spent a lot of money. It started out like 5 or 10 cents a click. Now, I wasn't bidding against anyone, and all of a sudden it went up to 50 cents a click. Then it got up to $1 a click. That's unheard of for your own name, right? I am Mike Lindell. And so finally Google, after taking $20,000 of my money, said, you don't get to buy this anymore. They shut it off later in the day. They were tired of watching because they're going, wow, he's so stubborn. He's going to put it up there anyway. What are we going to do? I can just see him in their little room. What are we going to do? Well, let's just shut him off. So they shut me off. And there was other things too. Wikipedia, they took over my Wikipedia. Now they can put anything they want up there to ruin my identity. What they are now, you're right, Steve. They're attacking the Lindell Recovery Network, which was helping millions of addicts. from my past of being an ex-addict, ex-crack addict, amongst other things. And now they're over here on Wikipedia. They can put up anything they want of who any story they want, anything they want, because they control it now. And they can keep me from suppressing the truth. They can suppress it by not letting me buy my own name.
I want to go back to the buying your own name. Is that restraint of trade? I mean, who can't buy if you're prepared to pay for it? Mm-hmm. In other words, you're prepared to pay for it, and they're coming in and say, even if you want to pay for it, they won't sell it to you to use. Explain to me how that is even possible in this country? How can they just determine they won't sell it to you? If you're prepared to pay for it, how can they not sell it to you?
Well, it's an antitrust law violation for sure. Because earlier in the year, or I guess it was 2 years ago, Google did another thing to my business where I couldn't buy my own AdWords for my pillow and Google Marketplace. They told me you have to have 1,000 SKUs to be up there. They do, they're their own boss. They're a monster. They do what they want. And I'll tell you, for me not being able to buy Mike Lindell, so now if you're searching, if you want to get the DVD or get my book or anything there, you have to actually scroll down now. Or, when you put in Mike Lindell, you have to scroll to that page. It's terrible what they're doing.
By the way, I mean, the way the European Union and indeed the Australians are handling big tech now is something to look at. And Mike, I mean, if they are truly doing that to you, you're absolutely right. It's an antitrust case. They control 91% of the search engine market share. You have a real case on your hands there.
Look, and I'm keeping track, you guys. I'm putting everything down in this massive attack on me, on my integrity. And you're right, my employees now, they've called employees that I've had and friends that I've had 15, 20 years ago. The one thing about me is if you want to know all my stuff, just get my book. I was the most transparent person. I came out right away. I was a crack cocaine addict. I can't help that. I can only use my story to help other people and to help everybody better their lives. And that's what I set up with the Lindell Recovery Network. And now you're right. There's churches that people are hesitant out there going, what kind of person is he really? Is this really for us? And it's damaging, very damaging.
Mike, if you could hang on for a second, we just want to hold you over the break. We're going to have Rudy Giuliani in the next hour, also Boris Epstein talk about the trial, and also Dan Schultz about how you out there in the audience can take over the Republican Party by volunteering as a precinct committee member. We're going to get to all of the next hour. We've got to finish with Mike Lindell. Remember, Lindell is a perfect example. His life was fine until he went to the Oval Office one day and met the president, or went to the campaign to meet the president back in 2016, and next thing you know, they're all over him. He stepped forward, and now he stepped forward in a kind of a leadership position, say, hey, look, I'm going to go do this if I have to. And they're out to destroy him. They're out to destroy him personally. They're out to destroy his company. And most importantly, they're out to destroy the Lindell Recovery Center, which, as Eric says, hey, everybody can agree. We're trying to help addicts. We're trying to help people sort their lives out. No, it doesn't matter. Mike Lindell has stood up for the deplorables. Therefore, he must be destroyed. He must be destroyed because they want to stop it. Number two, as an example to the deplorables. This is just like the billboards down in the South. The Stasi. We want you to turn in your neighbors, want you to turn in your friends, want you to turn in your family. The lives of others. Okay, we're going to turn in a moment. Mike Lindell, Rudy Giuliani, Boris Epstein, all of it next. We're in Pandemic.